Trevor. Thank you for being with us. And this is John Ross Barnard on behalf of BBC Television, wishing you a very good night.
We're turning back the years here on BBC Two Northern Ireland. The very first episode of Are You Being Served is in half an hour after the one and only Keith Floyd.
First, we join Jonathan King.
Now on to the last in the series of Artist Journeys. Tony Cragg is off to Romania in search of clues that may lead him closer to the influences in Constantin Brancusi's artistic life.
World-class action on the ice now on BBC Two, introduced by Sue Barker.
Now on BBC Two, the programme that really knows its Arsenal from its elbow.
This is BBC Two. We now provide coverage of the Masters Snooker from Wembley Conference Centre, where we join Doogie Donnelly.
Errand of mercy for the crew of the Enterprise, now on BBC Two in Star Trek.
TV for the brave, first on BBC Two, The Sunday Show.
Now on BBC Two, a children's delight, a secret in Suffolk and a blooming freak. Gardener's World.
Now on BBC Two, Captain Frank Drebin exercises his amazing detection skills. Only the innocent need fear Police Squad.
After years of longing and looking forward, finally it's goodbye mucky Leeds, hello magical Morecambe. But retirement isn't all it's cracked up to be, not even with a sunset across the bay, as tonight's play in our Alan Bennett season proves.
Skyscrapers. Why wait for a lift when you can crawl up the outside? An extreme challenge now on BBC Two in They Who Dare.
Now, on BBC Two, by way of a tribute to Audrey Hepburn, who died last month, we're showing her Oscar-winning performance as the princess who falls in love with an American journalist, played by Gregory Peck, in the classic romantic comedy Roman Holiday.
An exclusive world premiere on BBC Two now, with the concert recorded earlier this evening. Mike Oldfield performs Tubular Bells 2 from Edinburgh Castle.
An MGM classic adventure now on BBC Two. Robert Taylor and Elizabeth Taylor star in Ivanhoe.
BBC Two falls into the hands of the two fat ladies now with the tastiest and juiciest comedy cuts.
Now on BBC Two, Rock Docs presents an omnibus film on Leonard Cohen, Songs from a Life.
It's all a matter of honour here on BBC Two now, as Keith Carradine and Harvey Keitel become embroiled in a long and bloody feud. Set at the time of the Napoleonic Wars, Ridley Scott directs his first film, The Duelists.
Here on BBC Two, a man with a mission to investigate beer. A difficult job, but someone's got to do it.
Now on BBC Two, Sandy Toksvig introduces those who are refurbishing the decorators for the 21st century.
The journey to perfection now on BBC Two for the next generation.
Instant coffee on DS9 now on BBC Two. It's not to everyone's taste. Just watch them go here on BBC Two on the penultimate day of the European Athletics Championships.
First on BBC Two, a visit to the Gamma Quadrant, and all is not as peaceful as it seems.
This is BBC Two with the first ever episode of Deep Space Nine. One's for sorrow, but BBC Two's for joy.
First on BBC Two, there are no strings attached to be a member of this fan club.
And this is BBC Two, where there are unexplained problems aboard Deep Space Nine.
A brand new series first on BBC Two, focusing on the world of choreography, Summer Dance.
And this is BBC Two, following the men and women chosen and trained to live with the nukes. A dangerous mission, out of control, now on BBC Two.
Coming to terms with a life of personal and domestic decay now on BBC Two. Some strong language as Albert Finney stars with Greta Scacchi and Michael Gambon, the Browning version.
Now on BBC Two, young minds with thoughts of the future.
Catch up with Buffy events now on BBC Two. And you know, this vampire business, sometimes it can be totally gross.
Don't mess with mountains. Extreme survival in the Alps with Ray Mears in half an hour. First on BBC Two, the one with the glasses and the other one.
This is a night in 1973. Now it's the film Save the Tiger. Strong language from Jack Lemmon as he decides to make some big changes in his life.
Keep an eye out for the black cabs dotted around BBC Two at the moment. Short backseat dramas that continue now with Radio Rage and Strong Language. Shame really, if only they'd stuck with Dolly Parton.
Three hopefuls, only one position, but who will stand out from the crowd and get their dream job as a press photographer? Foot in the door in half an hour on BBC Two. The past returns to haunt now on BBC Two in the first of a double visit to Star Trek Deep Space Nine.
The F1 experience for Tiff in Barcelona, Top Gear in half an hour on BBC Two. First big adventure, extreme survival with a man who knows his stuff.
An old phase back on Buffy's patch, now on BBC Two. It's scary stuff. Watch out for spikes.
Up and Away now on BBC Two, and a Formula One air show, a programme that was originally shown last year.
New for you on Two.
In a history.
Of the exam process for doctors-to-be. Monday at 8 on 2.
Monday night on BBC.
New from Jennifer Saunders, tomorrow at 9 on 2.
We're now in the approach phase, everything looking good.
Newsnight now on BBC Two with Jeremy Paxman in Manchester and Gavin Esler in London.
Top Gear in an hour on BBC Two. First, it's election night with David Dimbleby and Peter Snow. They call him Fast Eddie. He's a winner, he's a loser, he's a pool shark. Paul Newman is the hustler here on BBC Two in half an hour.
Joe Swift.
A secret dating back to Roman times uncovered in the Fens. We're talking landscapes in half an hour after a moving and uplifting story of survival in the first of a new series here on BBC Two, Tsunami Prayers.
Enthusiastic entrepreneurs in search of a golden opportunity. A new series of Dragon's Den tomorrow at 8. Back to tonight, and the Learning Zone follows at 2 a.m. But first on BBC Two, an eye on world events with Nighttime News 24. For me, Paul Reid, good night. Also tomorrow, after 4 weeks of intensive training, Ron Atkinson commentates on a major football match, and Esther Ranson interviews live on the biggest chat show in France. Will it be a coup de grace or a public humiliation? The final showdown on Excuse My French at 9. That's it for tonight though. For me, Paul Reid, good night. The ironically named Ski Sunday special slips in half an hour. First, foodies and wine bores your day. You know, it's amazing what turns up when you do a spot of housekeeping for your 90th birthday on Friday. This is the Giant's Causeway BBC Two Northern Ireland style. Now let's catch up and see where the finger of sacking was pointed on You're Fired. But first,
comedy tonight on BBC Two that's getting a cult following. The Mighty Boosh at 11:20. Then
on the Culture Show tonight, Bill Bailey with the BBC Concert Orchestra, an alternative folk.
on BBC Two now with some strong language. It's the last leg of the race to the pole, and the Brits are on their last legs.
BBC Two's rocking around the Christmas tree in half an hour. Steve Wright presents a special Top of the Pops 2 after a mince-pie nightmare for Ria.
George Best once said, "I spent a lot of money on booze, birds and fast cars, and the rest I just squandered." Celebrating a football legend here on BBC Two with a whole evening of programmes. George Best Night begins at 9.
This is BBC 4 on BBC Two, rediscovering our roots in part 2 of Folk Britannia.
British television makes way for something new. BBC 1, 2 and 4 are about to be joined by the magic number 3. Live on BBC 2 at the launch of the BBC's brand new channel. Johnny Vaughan is the host, and this is BBC 3.
These are just a big mouth. What he didn't want you to know in Terry Jones' Barbarians at 9. Now hit the red button as BBC 2 returns to Chelsea.
And it's here every Thursday night from 9. On the way, Dara O'Brien returns to mock the week in half an hour. First new to BBC 2 now, meet Mitchell and Webb.
So now it's Thursday night, it's BBC 2 and the pedigree comedy starts here with some strong language and extras. Cue laughter. Donald Trump sniffing out The Apprentice USA tonight at 11:50. Now BBC 2's taking the pieces out of the news to mock.
A grand entrance or two now on BBC 2, so welcome home. Come on in and close the door.
Well, now on BBC 2, we're at home in a room where you spend most of the time in the dark. The bedroom, a place of sanctuary, a place to relax, a place to indulge in enjoyable activities, such as sleep.
This reminds me of something. What is it?
That material? That's the same as I've got on the toilet seat cover in the upstairs ensuite.
What, isn't that white?
Yeah, it used to be.
So now they're leaving BBC 2 in style. It's the final show from our favourite husband and wife team. And as usual, there's very strong language from the start.
Well, that's all for tonight on BBC 2, and we're also saying goodbye to the current family of twos that we use to introduce our programmes. There's a new look from 10 tomorrow morning. I'll say no more, don't want to spoil the surprise. So if this is your thing, here's a small tribute to the outgoing twos, for which my colleague Richard deserves credit. I'll speak to you soon. Good night.
The changing face of BBC Two. If you haven't heard, our numerical friend is off for a quick nip and tuck, and from tomorrow morning he'll have a fresh new complexion. So before we welcome the new, a celebration of the past.
Looking through to Tastes of the Caribbean with Planet Food at 11:30, you're watching BBC Two with something new for the weekend. This is BBC Two. Tonight, separating fact from fiction, 9/11, The Conspiracy Files, at 9 o'clock. Now, fruity, spicy fusion tastes of the Caribbean with Planet Food. This is BBC Two. Tonight, what really happened on the day the world changed. 9/11, The Conspiracy Files, here at 9. Now, a bestseller on screen. Jack Lemmon stars in Tuesdays with Maury. Some people believe that the US government was actively responsible for 9/11. But do you? The Conspiracy Files, tonight at 9. You're watching BBC Two now, and it's murder. Final day of the World Championships with Ski Sunday here at 4:35. This is BBC Two. It's rugby now, and we know it's only rock and roll, but we like it. So see 9/11 through different eyes after Top Gear enters the space race at 8. You're watching BBC Two. Now to Sweden for Ski Sunday. You're watching BBC Two. Tonight, boldly sending a Reliant Robin where no Reliant Robin has gone before. Top Gear at 8. Now, anything that can go wrong probably will.
Sunday night comedy with Ideal and Family Guy from 11:20. But right now on BBC Two, the final days of a superstar and one of rock's great mysteries.
Varenas betrayed and Mark Antony sent packing to Egypt. Another chance to catch up with this week's episodes of Rome from 11:20 tonight. Now on BBC Two, Jack and Victor taste the high life. Now on BBC Two, the latest national and international updates with BBC News. Supercars in the desert with the best of Top Gear tomorrow at 8. Now on BBC Two, celebrating Newsnight at 30. Remember this.
Now on BBC Two and the BBC HD channel, it looks like we may finally have the answer to a burning question.
Now on BBC Two, 5 minutes later than scheduled, comedy that crosses the channel.
Meet 3 incredibly brave children in Great Ormond Street. Fix My Jeans at 9 tonight on BBC Two. First, a giant house share. Can just £100,000 build this dream family home? Making waves with some vintage looks now on BBC Two without getting in a 1920s flap. The pressure's on in the latest hair-raising challenge. Now on BBC Two, Newsnight with Emily Maitlis.
Newsnight now on BBC Two with Kirsty Walk.
So, if you're expecting live golf, I'm afraid the wind has suspended play at the Open for the time being. So instead now on BBC Two, enjoy a tasty trip with James Martin, Homeward Bound.
So now on BBC Two, in a change to some listings, an unscheduled stop at the Animal Park. Following an afternoon of changes, our escape to the continent as scheduled in 45 minutes. That's after a getaway closer to home now on BBC Two with Len Goodman and time-travelling companion. An intriguing find fished out of the attic on Floggett at 5:45 on BBC Two. Right now, life imitating art on a continental property search. Escape with Anita Rani.
Now on BBC Two, the concluding part of a devastating two-part series, exposing our hidden history and the fortunes made from the abolition of slavery. Historian David Olusoga will be answering your questions after the programme. Join the discussion online. #Britain's Forgotten Slave Owners. To the mother of Wales and the mother of invention, seeking the ingenious of Anglesey in Coast at 9 tonight. Now there, BBC Two's Natural World enters a rich and diverse wilderness, home to a remarkable family of bears. Newsnight, now on BBC Two, with Kirsty Walk. A Friday night thriller from the Olympic Stadium with Jessica Ennis-Hill and Mo Farah in action at the London Anniversary Games here on BBC Two after Gardener's World. Tom Jones brings the music and Eric and Ernie bring the sunshine to Friday night now on BBC Two.
BBC Two still pressing that comedy button with some strong language. Whatever you do, don't miss out on the outtakes right at the end with Top Coppers. Take some crime drama that's as tense as they come. Cold in July, the film here at 10. First on BBC Two, talking to the people of a diverse and divided nation. A new adventure with Simon Reeve.
Celebrating a golden age of cinema this Saturday on BBC Two as part of our Hollywood Women's season. An Ingrid Bergman double bill, Casablanca at 1:20, but now an Oscar-winning film from 1948 that saw Bergman nominated for her lead role.
Highlights of England versus New Zealand in cricket today at the Test in the hour, and now Natural World Adventure, raising a family with the Weasels.
This is BBC Two.
Quietly unassuming yet immensely powerful, story of George W. Bush's right-hand man now on BBC Two. Very strong language and some scenes some of you may find upsetting. In Vice.
State of the Union in an hour. Now, monarchy, mayhem and madness, according to the history books. But Lucy Worsley has a different take on King George. Denial, doubt, delay. Big oil versus the world in an hour. Before that, what effect have these problematic participation patterns had on our plants? Monty versus the garden.
Fancy a day off the cooking. Top tips from Britain's top takeaways at 11:30 after Best Bits and Bites from the Saturday Kitchen.
A new team of celebs in Richard Osman's House of Games in 45 minutes after a trip to a captivating Cumbrian castle.
See BBC on BBC Two with Terror from the Skies in half an hour. Deadly Dinosaurs with Steve Backshall. Before that, Adam's about to face one almighty challenge.
Now on BBC Two with some strong language, taking pride to help a city thrive, step by step through tough times and good. We join Bradford on duty.
Now on BBC Two, make and mend and make some money.
He's a man on a mission. The hat, the pistol, and he always wins. Yul Brynner stars in Westworld on BBC Two.
Thursday morning on BBC Two with reports here at home and from around the world. The latest stories now from BBC News.
A case unsolved in our evening film Mr. Holmes at 8 tonight on BBC Two. And now, crime by the water. Who's safe and who can you trust?
No cricket this evening on BBC Two, but there's still time for some classic Kent versus Essex rivalry. In a change to some listings, time to go full throttle.
Now on BBC Two at 9 o'clock, we join the BBC Newsroom.
Across the wily, windy moors of BBC Two, we stumble across a strange thing, also known as Kate Bush, telling her story at 9 o'clock. Music first that makes you go.
The latest from Lords today at the Test follows at 7. First on BBC Two, when it comes to nature, we're taking you to the ends of the earth.
Yellow's in search of otters, and hopefully those show-stealing badgers will be back. Springwatch, always a tonic, tonight at 8 on BBC Two. Right now, though, it's lambing season. European Adventures on BBC Two. The Pizza Boys hit San Sebastian in an hour after an Italian road trip with some of the world's finest cars and an uncharacteristically modest baker.
Office gossip is cheap, but what is the cost of Helen's new alliance? Strong and discriminatory language and dealing with suicide. We've more from the newsreader.
Far from a pointless search, Richard Osman exploring his family tree. Who do you think you are here on BBC Two? After, we head to Suffolk for Flogget.
Settle in for your Monday night movie now on 2. A pair of Jesuit priests set off to search for their mentor, with some scenes which some viewers may find upsetting and prolonged violent scenes. Silence.
The South Shields spouses with their own special Chris and Rosie Ramsey show is at 9 on BBC Two. Now, big excitement over an umbrella for the new celebs.
Welcome to Sunday Night on BBC Two. Anthony here with you live throughout the evening. First to Trent Bridge. Can England chase down a mammoth first innings from New Zealand? All the best of today at the Test.
The first of 2 Betty Davis films, now on BBC Two. Now Voyager follows at 3:25. But first, given the worst news, she's determined to find happiness in Dark Victory.
How to drive like an Italian. Paul Hollywood asserts himself on a big continental road trip in half an hour on BBC Two. Time first to go under the spotlight. Tense negotiations on BBC Two now, later than billed with some strong language and inspired by true events. Rosamund Pike stars in Entebbe.